feeling calm, centered, and loving. That's the way that I'm trying to live my life now. We've been talking about that for the last few weeks here on Fall Rise Give. I'm Bob, that's Vipin, and we are on episode 19 of season 3 already. Hard to believe that time has gone by that fast, sir, Vipin.
Yeah, and 76 total, I think. We're on the 76th episode.
Yeah, it's crazy. So speaking of 76, we are the complete opposite of that here in Ferryville, Wisconsin. It is 18 degrees below zero. My heat has not stopped running for the last 3 days. My last night when I got up from work, my kitchen sink was froze up. This morning, our shower was froze up. It's a cold one, man.
It is. I heard Canada this week is going to get the coldest place on Earth with 50 degrees below zero.
Dang.
As Toronto area, I think this is the one. And I heard Boston is going to be minus 11, which is pretty rare for Boston.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cold weather. That's for sure. You know, it's funny because we bitch about the heat, we bitch about the cold. We complain. It seems like in our lives we complain about a lot of things, and then we don't do anything to change it. You know, when I talk to my folks, they're always like, "Oh, it's so cold," or "Oh, it's so hot," and I'm like, "Well, you're the ones that chose to live in Minnesota, and me living in Wisconsin now, I'm the one that continues to choose to live here, and putting myself through this weather, through this ups and downs of weather. But I like where I live."
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about talking about this today. What got me to Seattle, and let's talk a little bit about that, and kind of talk about how to attract people, places, and opportunities that serve our purpose.
Absolutely.
And opportunities that serve our purpose.
We're choosing to live where we live because of the opportunities that arises for us there.
And the people that we choose to live with. Yeah, people have a lot of influence on our lives. You see a lot of couples that get married, and oftentimes they want to be close to family. So they end up moving back to where their families and their roots are. In our case, our family, a major part of our family moved out to Seattle. But let's talk a little bit about kind of a little story of how I attracted living in Seattle. So growing up in Minnesota, when we were in high school and middle school, we had a friend. He was doing his PhD under the same lab as my dad worked at the University of Minnesota. And he was from Seattle. He loved football. Great guy. Taught me a lot about football. And when I graduated from college, I went to San Francisco with a bunch of friends, Matt Elhart, a bunch of these guys that I went to, school with and high school with, and some other friends from the community that I used to live in by the university there, that Commonwealth Terrace Cooperative. And so anyway, I went to San Francisco. We went about 11 or 12 days, maybe almost 2 weeks, and just loved San Francisco. As a kid, I just wanted to go to San Francisco. That was my dream place. I had never been to San Francisco before. I had been to LA and California and Las Vegas and all that, but never to San Francisco. So this 1992 trip got me there. And then from there, I loved it. And then I came back to Minnesota. I was like, I got to figure out a way to move to the West Coast. And then as luck would have it, I was looking for a job, and our friend Dan, who was doing his PhD at University of Minnesota, went back to Seattle where his home is. And his brother ran a food company, and I was starting to start a food company at the time. I was thinking about it. And so I thought it'd be a good experience to go work for a food company. So he asked me to come out to Seattle, live with his family for a week. And I came and visited, and it was raining the whole week. But a couple of days it was dry. I absolutely, at the time, I used to like the rain because sit by the window watching the rain come down and enjoy a cup of coffee, read a good book. That was my fantasy about the rain. And so I did a bunch of hikes, walked around by myself, but basically alone during the day after I do some work shadowing and things like that with the sales rep there. And so I found a park. It's called Lincoln Park in Seattle. It's on a hill and a bluff overlooking the Puget Sound and the ocean. And it's a beautiful place with tons of trees and hardly anybody there. And I ended up just finding this park, parking my car, and walking down this path. And long and behold, I fell in love with the place. And I came back. And when I came back to Minnesota, I didn't get the job or whatever situation. I ended up starting a food company in Minnesota myself. But as I was starting to meditate and visualize, I visualized myself in that park through the woods, walking there. From 1992 to 1998, I wanted to be in Seattle. I wanted to be close to that park. And the reason being is when you combine Minneapolis, St. Paul, the weather, the climate, the culture, people, and San Francisco, you get Seattle. You get a lot of greenery, you get a lot of nature, you get a city that's not as big as San Francisco, not as hectic, and still get mild weather. So, anyway, as opportunity would have it, I ended up getting a job, my corporate job back from Minneapolis. Uh, an opportunity led me to become a major account manager at this very large prestigious IT consulting firm that moved me to Seattle in 1998 January. Anyway, so I kind of manifested that, but I kind of followed an opportunity. It took me 6 years to get there. So sometimes things take a long time. And so the topic today is how do you attract people, places, and opportunities that serve our purpose? Last week, we talked about the heart chakra. We talked about compassion. We talked about forgiving yourself, forgiving others. We talked about raising your energy, shifting your energy. So the heart chakra is very interesting. So let me take a step back. As the start of the new year, about 4 weeks ago, we started talking about setting goals. First of all, we started talking about being grounded. The week before New Year's, and then that was the root chakra, being grounded. I'm calm, centered, and loving. That mantra, and then we went to desire. Then we went to the sacral chakra, getting a list of our goals, essentially things that you want in life, things that you dream about, your true heart's desire, kind of a thing. Not just a goal to get a job, but a bigger goal that you've always wanted to be a musician or an author or a podcaster or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the third one, we talked about purpose, right? Setting your 5-year goals, where you want to be, how do you achieve them? We talk about taking action, acting with purpose, right? And then, and trusting the universe, trusting in a higher power. The fourth chakra was really about the energy. The heart chakra was about the energy and getting rid of your resentments, getting rid of your things that block your heart, embodying God's divine love and continuing to go in a sourceful, loving way. That's where the loving word comes in, on calm, centered, loving peace, right? Mm-hmm. And so the next one is what we call the throat chakra. Before we get into that, let's spend a little bit of time on the heart chakra piece. When we talk about the heart, we really are magnetic, right? There's been research that's been done that says that an average person emanates and attracts and shares the energy up to 6 feet outside of their body. Have you ever walked in a room? Yeah. And so you emanate energy, not just your aura, but from your heart, really. And EKG machines and things we've talked about in the past really measure the electrical current in your heart. So it's a vibration. Electrical currents are going through our bodies all the time. And so what I'm trying to say is that it's really important that the heart chakra, the center of your body, is open in a loving, divine, compassionate way. That you get rid of resentments and negative energy. And a part of the mantras that we've talked about is my heart is open. I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. Your purpose was defined in the third and the second chakra, right? Your desires become purpose when you start to give it away. And the way you give things away is through your heart. As we start to talk about this, how do you attract? The heart is open, but you have to communicate that energy, not just by your presence, but also through your senses and through your mouth. And sometimes our mouth is electronic in the sense that we're writing emails and texts and things like that, right? So it's communications. Mm-hmm. That's the throat chakra. So have you ever walked into a room, or you've had an author or a visit, and all of a sudden the energy is just incredible, calm, serene, and you feel inspired just to be in the presence of that person. Have you ever felt that?
Oh, I've felt that all the time. As a bartender, I feel that often. I mean, it's weird because you can feel the magnetic attraction from some people, and you can feel the magnetic repulsion from some other people. I mean, sometimes you
Exactly.
feel like you're brought into them, and sometimes you're just like, stay away from that person. They're toxic, and you can. I've got the sense of that. I can feel that in different people, but there's a lot of people that don't have that. That maybe they're just not open to it. Maybe their heart isn't open, and they're not ready to either get what the person is trying to, quote unquote sell, or maybe they just don't want to have to deal with some people at a certain time.
Yeah, and it's all about awareness, right? And so the base mantra
Absolutely.
that we've talked about is calm centered. And being calm and centered, you start to feel energies. You start to see things when you're calm and centered. And when you're loving, it's the act of love, right? That's when you're kind of giving. That's when you're actually feeling love for yourself, and then you can only give what you have. So we do feel negative energy. My advice to anybody who feels negative energy is get as far away physically from that person as you can. If there's negative energy and you're forced to be in that room, get away from, at least 6 feet away from that person if you're feeling that. And my mantra, as always, is keep repeating to yourself, I'm calm, centered, and loving. And you will re-energize yourself and put a shield around your body essentially by doing that, and not let that affect you.
I didn't realize that there was a certain amount of feetage that you should be a
Yeah.
certain amount of distance away from somebody, because I've tried to live that my life, man. I tried to, if I don't like somebody or if I don't feel like there's a connection, I don't really want to have them as part of my aura, if that's even the right word to use. But I don't want them to even
That's
be in my.
exactly it. That's
I,
space.
I don't
Yep,
want them to
yep,
be in
yep,
my
yep,
sphere.
yep,
Bring the people
exactly.
that you like closer to you, and the people that you don't like, just stay away from them. Like when my kids were little, I
Exactly.
used to tell my kids that be careful who you hang out with, because people will judge you on the people that you're hanging out with. And I think that kind of is the start of this whole thing that we're talking about.
It really is. It really is. I just started research this week that you are a result of the 5 people that you hang out with,
Yep,
and the most important
agreed.
person that you hang out with, the one that you spend the most time with, usually a partner, has the biggest impact in your life. Even like Tony Robbins, 25 years ago, when I read his book, mentioned that choose the right partner because your happiness, your energy, your destiny is so tied to that person. It's critical that you pick the right partner because they will destroy you or build you up. And so super important how you feel around that person. Are they making you a better person, or are they making you a worse person? So that's critical, right? So we talked about now, how do you emanate, how do you share that loving energy? Love is the most powerful force in the universe, I believe. Love is the closest thing to God, um, and or universe, or whatever you want to call it. I think everything emanates, and it's interesting. Life gets created through sex, which people are supposed to be in love when they're making love and doing that kind of thing, right? And so life gets created by that activity. So love is essentially at the center of this whole thing. Now, how do you communicate a loving energy to attract people, places, and opportunities that serve your purpose? You do that through your communication. There's a presence of filling yourself with the mantras, and then there is the communication through your voice, through your presence, through your writing, through your visuals. And a lot of our communication is nonverbal. So when we communicate in a visual environment and people see us or hear us, they make decisions about our tone, our voice pitch, the rate, speed, things like that. So most people are either visual thinkers, they see what they see and then they learn from seeing things. Then they're auditory, they do things by listening. They hear things and they really focus on every word choice that they hear the sound of. And then there are kinesthetic people, people that learn things by doing. A lot of people just have to do stuff to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now you can you have all three of these, but you're dominant in usually one. I'm a very visual person,
I'm an
and
auditory
I've
person.
learned to. Yeah, you no right, no, absolutely no doubt about that. And what I've learned is you can balance, and I've become more auditory and more kinesthetic when I need to do certain things. But I still dominant visual, dominant auditory, and then kinesthetic, which is feeling and doing things. So when we're communicating, we have to read our audience. That gets back to that mantra of being common centered. When you're common centered, you can read the audience. That's why when you feel the energy of the negative person, you get away from it. So read the audience, figure out if somebody's talking really fast, they're probably a visual person. If they're methodical in how they talk, they're an auditory person. If they're using words like I feel, I sense, they're usually a kinesthetic person. The kinesthetic person talks the slowest, and the auditory person may raise their voice, may come down, is usually dynamic in how they use their voice. But a visual person will use hand motions and like I'm doing right now and do these things to kind of explain visually what they're talking about. So it's important to read the audience when you're going to communicate what it is your purpose is.
I think a lot of people are all three of those, though, Vipin. I think that
They
because I
are. They
mean,
are.
because you're talking about because I use my hands a lot when I talk, but I think that's something that I learned when I went to radio school is that when you talk and you use gestures, people can hear that and they can hear a smile on your face, and I mean, so people can get a lot of communication obviously through your ears, but you see a lot of things too. And when like even when we're talking right now, it's theater of the mind, so people are visualizing what we're talking about as we're doing it. So you get the combination
Yeah,
of,
especially the visual
at
person.
least two and possibly three of those things.
People are all three. So when you're reading your audience, you want to incorporate all three. You want to speak fast at certain times. You want to be very methodical in how you speak at certain times, and you want to use sensory words. Now, one of the ways when you're doing interpersonal communication, if you're around somebody who uses words like I feel, I do this, if you just, in this society today, we're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to touch anybody. But a lot of
Oh,
people
right,
in the
absolutely, we're
old
not.
days, we're not, right? In the old days, a lot of my friends and I, even at workplace, give each other hugs. And that's acceptable once the boundary and once somebody reaches up to give you a hug, then that's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for a kinesthetic sensory person, if you can touch them somehow, you'll build a big bond. Maybe that's a handshake, maybe that's a hug, whatever that is. Obviously, nothing inappropriate. We don't recommend anything stupid like that. So it's important to incorporate that in.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're getting into um, a mantra, and the mantra is I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. The purpose is the most important part. You got to get clear on what your purpose is. That was a step 2 and step 3, right? So you attract based on your purpose, which is often based on your values and things that you're giving away based on your passion and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
when you say that mantra, what you're doing, and I sent you a definition of what a mantra is. We've talked about mantras since day one and chakras from day one. I actually watched a video of a guy talking about sound frequencies. He was a DJ and he was doing a TED talk. And he explained the definition of a mantra to me. Mantra is in Sanskrit, which is the Latin version of Hindi or the Indian languages. Mantra means mind tool. So, mantra is a tool to control your mind, control it in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So, your mind determines your beliefs, your emotions, your feelings, and your thoughts, right? So, what a mantra does is when you repeat the words over and over again, and the repetition is really critical. And the word for that is called mantra japa. I think I might have mentioned that to you before.
Yeah, you have.
It's important when we are doing this that we don't have to believe that I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. You don't have to believe it. What you're doing is, by repetition, your brain is already altering and getting into a place, a meditative space. We talked about alpha and theta waves. It starts to get into alpha waves. You can repeat these things throughout the day. And the most mentally aware people usually are the monks, right? They're very meditative. You see the malas or the beads that they carry in Christian monks, Buddhist monks, Hindu monks. They have these beads that they kind of play with their hands, and they repeat
Hmm.
these prayers, the Hail Marys that we talked about, the Lord's Prayer, Hindu mantras. And I haven't told you this, but I was given a Hindu mantra by a Hindu guru um, back in, I want to say, the late 80s. There's a Gita ashram, which is a Hindu temple in Minneapolis, northeast Minneapolis, that started out. And it's called the Gita Ashram. There's a international organization called International Gita Ashram Foundation or something. In most major cities, they have a Gita Ashram. A lot of Indian people go there, but a lot of Westerners as well. And so it's basically a temple where they practice Hinduism, but based on this book called the Bhagavad Gita, which is written as one of the Hindu texts for spirituality about Hinduism, right? Why I'm mentioning that is in that text, even at that ashram, they would repeat the verses over and over again as a group. Once a month, they'd get together for an hour or two and read all 18 chapters. What I forgot whatever number of chapters there. I think there are 18, and would repeat it, recite it over and over again. At that ashram, I picked up a book called Mantra Japa, which is a repetition. Only this week did I actually go in and learn what the scientific basis of how a repetition of a mantra calms your mind. I knew this before inherently through practice, but I didn't know this actually is renowned knowledge based on it. And it's a definition that when you Google mantra japa or mantra, what it actually does to your brain. So we talk about meditation a lot, and I talk about it in my books and all this stuff that we talked about. It's really important that the simplest thing of repetition of I'm calm, centered, and loving, just repeating that throughout the day, even if you don't feel like you're calm, centered, and loving, you'll become calm, centered, and loving just by repeating those words over time. And you,
Oh,
like
I
you said, you've
agree.
been focused on it for the last 4 weeks. Has that made a big difference for you in the last 4 weeks?
It honestly it has, Vipin. It's weird, and I've got it written down in multiple places. I have it written down here in the studio. I've got it written down uh, by my chair that I sit in most evenings down in the living room. But I do have a question because some of the stuff that we're talking about, we were talking about the having your heart open, and with your heart opening, being open, it helps you to attract. But what about when your heart isn't open? Because there's often times that we walk in and walk through life with a closed heart, and we're not feeling it, and we're not feeling like being attractive, or we're not feeling like we're going to help anybody, or we're not feeling like our that our ducks are in a row, so to say. How do we open that stuff up so that way we can be ready to take in and ready to learn and to be better?
Great question. This is why you're the Mr. Podcaster, right? That's why our partnership works. You bring up a very valid question that I wasn't thinking about, but I know the answer to it. And I carried around a book in my book bag for the last 2 years. And the book mentions a emotional management system. How do you manage your emotions? But it doesn't give you a tool on how to shift from fear anxiety, depression into a more elevated energetic state or higher vibration where you can actually attract and open up your heart. When we say, I open my heart to attract people and places, by opening it up, you have to love. You have to. I'm not saying it's a suggestion. Heart is closed unless you're in a loving state. What gets in the way of that is fear and anxiety and depression, resentments, all sorts of negative energy that gets in the way of your heart opening. You saw that in the text that I sent to you.
Yeah, but what do we have to be open though for love? I mean, loving ourselves, loving each other, loving our surroundings, loving what God has given us, or just love in general, or being open in general.
So that is what love is. All of those things, right? Loving of ourselves is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give what you don't have. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to give love. It's just simple as that. So the first step is really loving yourself. Loving yourself, like, I love myself. That's the ego talking a lot of the times. Loving yourself really means I am 100% okay with being human and making mistakes. I'll give you an example of this. I'm calm-centered and loving, and I'm calm-centered and focused at work. 2 weeks ago, on a Thursday, I had a huge headache. I was feeling, and I think I might have used this example last week, where I got off headache, and I got in a situation that things were changing, plans were changing on me, and I wasn't calm and centered at that moment. So I stepped out of the room, out of the house, and I'm like, I'm going outside. I'm going to chill. And I got myself within a half an hour in that mental state, and it ended up being a really good situation with the person I was with, spending the next hour and a half with that person. But it rattled me. It triggered me. The situation did. It happened again last night. I was with that same person, and the plans changed again at the last minute. And that rattled me, and I became angry. I used a swear word in communication with that person. Mm-hmm. So I got off balance. We're going to get off balance. We're going to run into obstacles. We're going to get angry. We're going to get fearful. We're going to get depression. And what we talked about a couple of weeks ago is we got to acknowledge these things. And then you need to choose love. You need to choose love over fear. You need to choose love over anger. You need to choose love over anxiety. You need to choose love over depression. In the Bible, the word love is used so often. I think it's John 3 something, not 3:16 or 4:16 is the one of God's
3:16. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. That one.
Yeah, not that
3:16. Where no, not that one.
Yeah, not that one. That's the ultimate love that God gave us, right? But one of the verses right in that same chapter, it talks about true love casts out true fear. And only way to shift your energy, shift your emotions, is to choose an alternative to what you're feeling. And the alternative usually is a calm, centered, loving. Loving is very important in this. The act of loving. Loving yourself, saying it's okay for me to be angry. It's okay for me to be depressed. I'm human. I'm not perfect. That's what true self-love is. Loving yourself unconditionally. Accepting yourself unconditionally. Accepting others even though they're totally different. There's a lot of chaos going on in this world right now. With Minneapolis having hundreds of thousands of people protesting last week about the ICE and all the stuff that's going on, right? A lot of important stuff. So what I'm going to say is, getting back to what's important is, when we choose love over fear, we can't. Martin Luther King's birthday was last week, right? It was a holiday. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of, I think he went to prison. He did all sorts of things, but he chose love over and over again. He didn't resent the people that were putting him in prison. Same with Gandhi. Same with Nelson Mandela. These people got rid of the hate and the resentments and focused on love for humanity. And they set an example to the world by choosing love and loving people. That's how you shift your energy. And I know it's not easy. I know it's super hard. And where I was going with the conversation and what I think is really important is we have to pray for people that don't like and people that hurt us. That's very hard to do. If you can get to that level, you're going to become a person that attracts people, places, and opportunities because you're constantly sending out loving energy. The universe is built on loving energy. These people that I mentioned, Gandhi, MLK, Nelson Mandela, changed the world. You have 1 billion people in India that are 1.6 billion people in India that are free today. They may not be perfect, but they're free. South Africa is free today. America's civil rights and the unity that we have, the fact that we actually have a black president for 8 years, is because of the freedom of MLK. So they all chose love. That's what we have to focus on. So how do you attract people, places, and opportunities? You have to communicate, like I said, in a calm, centered way, the mantras in your head and shifting your energy and your message to know that you are going to send out positive, encouraging, sometimes tough love things, boundaries, in such a way that you're going to attract things that serve your purpose. Purpose for you needs to be very clear in your mind almost daily. I highly, highly recommend for our listeners today to do the mantra, I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. And again, your purpose is things that you're passionate about that you're giving away to the world. You know, you can sell it. When you say giving it away, it doesn't mean you give it for free. Your purpose in life is to help people. You help them by giving them value. They give you some value back. And that's how the world and economies work, right? But you have to be in a great state of mind. And the way to shift your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions is by choosing what you think about and how you think about it. And mantras are the way to do it. So in this particular week's, for anybody who's thinking about it, is you attract people. I attract people, places, opportunities that serve my purpose. That's what I'm going to do all week. That's what I've been doing for the last few weeks or few months, whatever, few years. But I'm getting very crystal clear on what I want.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.